We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkie. Welcome back to Deal Junkies. I'm Gabe Johansson here in the studio today with Dane McKinney, Trevor Howard, Mike Nuss, and you won't believe it, but returning guest, Michael Hamilton. What's up, Michael?
Hey, yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Welcome back to the show.
I love the new digs.
Yeah,
it's much nicer than the bowling alley.
We were in the bowling alley. Yeah, the bowling alley would work for us fine to get started, but this is a little more comfortable.
Heck yeah.
Climate controlled, no bowling pins in the background, but...
Wait, is this your second or third time on?
This is my second. First time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, then it's been longer than a year.
You think so?
Yeah, for sure.
No,
I bet it's
probably been about a year.
I bet it was like last April.
Well,
that's my guess.
For the people who
we got a lot to get updated on.
Yeah, for the people who didn't listen to that episode.
Yeah, reintroduce Michael. Talk about what he does.
He's the number one builder in Portland. That's what I tell everyone.
Well, that's because no one's building. Yeah.
Which makes him the number one builder in Oregon.
So yeah,
arguably.
Tell us where you're at now.
He's our hero.
Like, yeah, you've even surpassed where you're at like last time in Skyrocket. Like when we went and watched you at Investor Lab, you had like, I don't even remember what the number was in your pipeline, but tell us, kind of where you're at and what you're doing now.
Seneca Development, young guy. How old are you?
30, turned 31 in March.
Oh, you're a lot older than you were last time we talked to you. It's not as cool now.
I talked to these guys. I'm like, God damn it.
He is married now. Different guy.
Married. Having kids yet?
Oh, gosh. I got
Bunch of them.
Oh, yeah, you have 3 kids.
He keeps popping them out.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that last time.
Yeah, marriage was last in line.
You had all the kids and then got married.
Yeah, exactly. Did the exact opposite of what you're...
Okay, so give us an update on life. Where are you at?
Where are we at? I would just say we've progressed in our pipeline. We've now got projects that are actually permitted with building permits. So we're going through underwriting with banks. I would say that's the big thing we've noticed is regional banks have stepped up now that all these private debt funds have gotten aggressive. Seems like even in the last, let's say 90 to 120 days, regional banks have kind of come back around offering similar leverage. So we're doing a lot of bank underwriting.
Can you give us some examples of these regional banks you're using?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. Just in the last, like I said, 90 to 120 days, we have a 68 unit that's permitted and funded from an equity standpoint. So we went out to the debt markets. And looking at debt, it was... from the private standpoint, private credit was, I would say, 70% loan to cost, 65% loan to value. You'd pay 2 points and a broker fee if you had a broker do it. And then probably a 10% rate floating, 24-month loan, and then you'd have some sort of exit fee. And then in a lot of these private credit proposals, or I'd say LOIs, a lot of junk fees, right? So you're spending $3,500 every time you do a draw. Not so typical with banks. And we had a bank that we initially reached out to that then came back around, I would say about a month ago, at 1% in, 24-month loan, no junk fees, 8.25% rate. And then they had a mini perm option. So essentially allowing us to, if we wanted to, at the end of stabilization, we can hop into another 24-month loan at a reduced interest rate and only pay a 0.5 point. And
wow.
So that was for us.
So mini is a mini in time frame. Same loan amount, just a couple 24 more months with a better interest rate because you have stabilization. So now you can bridge to a better finance scenario if you need to.
Yeah, the idea being is exactly that. Is you don't have to pay, bridge financing points, don't have to pay the fees, and just allows us to be a little bit more dynamic at that delivery. You know, if we see the writing on the wall of, hey, it's going to be really good to sell here in the next 24 months, let's hop into the mini perm. If we say, hey, it's probably not going to be time to do it in the next 24 months, then we just go into permanent financing.
Can you say the name of the bank?
No. I'll tell you off the air. But no.
How long?
Just stepping back. So you said private debt funds stepped into the market, and so that's who you are now. Okay, you've had some deals, they've been permitted. You're waiting for the market to get right so you can acquire financing, move forward. You're raising the equity. You've got the equity. You go to private debt equity for the debt side of it. They're the only ones you can work with, but more expensive, bunch of fees, can't quite get the leverage you want, doesn't really make the project pencil. But now you have the regional banks coming in, different capital stack, underrated in a different way, and now you have kind of the magic bullet that allows you to move forward.
Yeah, and I would say the big difference, and it's certainly something to consider, if a project can support private debt, which our projects could, I just couldn't get over the junk fees where I'm looking at it like, man, we could save $200,000 just in a variety of junk fees, right? Another thing, too, with private debt is they're more inclined to do non-recourse. Very difficult to get non-recourse from a FDIC-insured bank. They will want recourse. So that's part of the handoff is, we've got more attractive capital in terms of cost of capital, but we do have to do full recourse on it.
Mm-hmm. How long does that take to get those loans typically?
I would say we negotiated the underwriting and finalized the term sheet probably a week and a half ago, and we have a target close of January 2nd. So a little over 60 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But, you go private debt fund, you can get it done.
Yeah.
Much quicker.
On that deal type, you're doing the pre-development too, right? So you're getting it all ready and permitted prior to that?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the ethos of our development business is we are vertically integrated. We've got construction, property management, research team, investment management, and our whole thought as far as raising capital was what shows true conviction, in our opinion, to investors is if we deploy capital first, we don't prioritize our capital, and we get the project to a place where a lot of the unknowns are taken out of question, right?
So have you looked at using HUD financing on your projects?
We have. It might be something we do down the line. Like, for instance, we looked at it for our assisted living facility that we're doing in Oregon City. It's a great example. And the HUD for assisted living, we went all the way through the gamut up until they said, yeah, but you can't refinance any cash out of the project with HUD for senior living. You can with multi, but not for senior.
Oh, interesting.
So we looked at it and we're like, okay, let's just go back to bank financing for it.
Okay, because we've been looking at HUD a lot because they'll give you 85% loan to cost on it. They're looking at right now 6% interest only rate during the construction period, 40-year AM fixed the whole time. And to me, it's just that's a crazy product.
That is a no-brainer.
But you have to use prevailing wage and there's extra fees and all this other stuff.
Prevailing wage, and I would say one of the difference, we talked about this at my office a couple months ago. The difference between our deals and these more tertiary market deals is we can't get up to 85% loan to cost responsibly. A good example is on our 68 unit, we had a private debt fund that was going to throw $14 million at the project. And I'm like, that's great that they're going to give us $14 million, but what position does that actually put the asset in?
Yeah.
So, we're getting 12 from a bank, $2 million less in debt.
So explain the responsibly part in that.
Yeah. I think that there is a perception that I don't necessarily agree with, that development is incrementally has more risk than acquisitions. And I think that's true if you're not responsibly leveraging the project, right? These projects typically go over schedule. They typically go over your initial budgets. And if your bank debt is going to sink the project in those scenarios, we try to avoid that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Give us an example of how it would sink it.
Wait, as you're talking to, you can move this thing with you. Just keep it in front of your mouth.
Yeah.
It'll bend all these ways.
I think a good example is what we just experienced back in 2022, 2023 with the rate hikes, where it was like, gosh, you could get money from just about anywhere. And it was, 6% money, 1 point in, very cheap capital, very leveraged capital. And then you could see, when rates get up, you can't borrow as much and you can't leverage the project as much. And, unlike 2008, there's a ton of liquidity in the market. So a lot of those projects were able to be rescued and or those banks have kicked the can down the road. I think one of the stats that I love is everyone's like, oh, there's $80 billion of real estate notes that are going to default and come due. It's like, well, that's 3% of the lending market.
It's nothing.
So that's, it's a blip.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is going to be, I would say, roughness around the edges, and that's what we try and avoid. We try and look at it and say, hey, if we take out construction debt, can we get HUD, Fannie Freddie, private debt, regional bank? Can all of the avenues of permanent financing take this debt out? Yes. Okay, then we'll move forward with it. But if one of the avenues can't, then we start kind of chewing into it.
You're losing your options. You can't maneuver as
It's exactly it. And I would say we're also going into what I perceive as an excellent time to start doing development projects. I think a lot of the equity capital is, again, started to realize it's not 2008, that these distressed deals are actually much harder to unwind and much harder to find. That equity is what we're seeing is starting to transition back to development with a ethos of, hey, if you start now, 24 months from now is going to be a great time to deliver something.
Yeah.
So you're bullish on development over the next couple of years.
Yeah, very bullish.
Tell us why. Like, is that because of the pipeline's emptying out a little bit? The fundamentals are getting better. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think from a fundamental standpoint, supply scarcity is imminent. I don't think there's any question that we have a supply shortage. And then also just monitoring what these institutional buyers are doing, right? What's Berkshire doing? What's BG Properties doing? They're buying negative leverage. And our perception is if they're buying at negative leverage, it's because they're not buying today's yield. They're buying future rent
2 years
based off
from
of
now.
scarcity.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to deliver into.
To that point too, on Berkshire, just like the fear of $80 billion of real estate notes going into default and commercial loans, Berkshire Hathaway alone has $385 billion in cash
On the side
right now, in cash, right? And so if the current note projection of default quintupled, Berkshire alone
Would buy it all.
Could buy it all.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
would, right?
It
And
would.
that's exactly what they did in 2008.
what they're positioned
And so
for.
I don't know. I mean, that piece of it, to like from your, I guess, to your point, it shows that somebody who has performed really, 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 really well in historic downturns because he's a value investor. I mean, that's his whole ethos is I'm just going to buy stuff at a discount from what it's really worth.
Yeah.
Not even just a discount of what it was worth 2 years ago, but just a real discount on basis.
Yeah.
And him having $385 billion right now makes me think, okay, 24 months from now, I'm going to guess that most of that has been deployed. I'm not going to assume that over the next 24 months he's liquidating even more than that, because I'm sure some of it will get liquidated over the next like 2-3 months. But I think he sees the bottom coming. Is my take on that, just from a proportion of their total holdings. That like relative proportion is as big as it's ever been. And so he can't see the future. I can't see the future. But just as from a fundamentals perspective, I think he's seeing it. Okay, we're 3 years into rates being hiked, and we've got to be close, right? In just the cycle of commercial debt and just market cycles in general. My guess is that's his take, is that it's coming in the next 6 months.
It's the tide versus the waves.
Isn't BlackRock like the largest holder of assets in the world? I read an article like a week ago that they've called the bottom. They've said that this is like they're back in.
Yep.
They're buying aggressively.
Well, a lot of it's stability too. I mean, that's what we're seeing is like from 12 months from now or 12 months ago to now, we're seeing our pricing on budgets down 2%
Really?
year over year. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is, I don't want to say it's common sense, but listen, no one's building anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of these subs are shrinking their margins.
We just had
and
the Q2 employment for Portland MSA came out, and construction was the leading jobless claim section of jobs. The construction.
So whereas
industry.
you couldn't find subs before, now they're looking for work.
out of the woodwork, and also personnel. I mean, we're doing a lot of hiring the last couple months, and we'll get a reference and we'll call the reference, and then the reference will be like, "Are you guys hiring?" Yeah, shoot over your resume.
That's so funny.
So it's a great time. It's a great time to start projects. A great time to find probably some assets you couldn't buy before. A great time to find some talent that
Yes.
maybe you couldn't get before. So it is a down time. We're at the bottom, but it creates a ton of opportunity as we scale our companies.
Certainly, yeah, no, certainly.
Best time to get leverage.
That's right.
But it's I like the waves for the tide conversation, because when you're in a day-to-day, so if you talk to a property manager right now, you're talking as a developer, which is we're out of supply, and because you're looking at 24 months ahead. But if you talk to my leasing staff, they're like, this has been a really hard year.
Oh,
to
very
lease.
hard.
And so they're in the waves, and they're like getting pounded, kind of, you have demand, you don't have demand, you have demand, you don't have demand. But when you're looking 24 months down the road, you're saying, I'm going to be delivering into a cycle where now that tide has come out from a supply standpoint, the demand's still there, and now I'm bringing a tide of supply into the demand that now wants it versus the demand that's now picky.
Yeah, and I would also say demand is very relative. I mean, I would say demand in Austin, Texas is much less than what it is in Portland, and we should be counting our lucky stars that rents are flat.
Just saw that stat come out that all the top metro areas losing rent, like down 15% in 2 years.
Could you imagine running a model and then throwing in a 15% drop in your rents?
They're 14% vacant right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's not super far off from Texas, though.
Well,
generally. Because I mean,
underwrite at 10,
Texas
not
in
5.
general,
They want to be
underwriting
they want to
at
be
10.
90 plus to be a healthy market, and they're aiming to come back to 94% occupancy. They sit at 86% right now.
Yeah, I mean,
like
Portland's peak was in submarkets of Portland was like 14.6% vacant.
What is it today?
I don't know what it is. I think it's
Sub
back.
5?
No, I don't think it's sub 5.
I think it's close.
Really?
It's 6. I just read their report is like
Vacancy?
6%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And CoStar, and so like what you're talking about is like, how do you think of a developer? How do you look beyond the waves into the tide? And what's interesting is because now, we're getting our raise together for our syndication, and so Caleb's going to a conference, multifamily conference in Seattle. I'm reviewing the latest CoStar reports, and it's almost the exact same message when you look at the owner-operators and they're looking forward, which is CoStar. The first part of the report is rents are down 0.5% for the past 12 months, and they talk about how it's been negative. And then the last paragraph starts out exactly what I've said, which is local capital has started and now regional capital is flowing into the market, and all the developers are excited about the next 10 years. And to that point, the owner of Holland Properties, one of his comments in his keynote was, I see the next 5 years in Portland being the best 5 years in my 40 years of investing in Portland.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about someone who's been investing since the 1980s in Portland, and he's more excited about the next 5 years, that's the difference from you're getting pounded with waves versus where is the tide at.
Yep.
And the other thing, like you nailed it, which is there's been a handful of cranes that have gone up. They've all gone up in the A-class locations where you have the most competition. Your rents have come down the most. You have the most concessions that you need to build. You have the highest cost of construction, the longest absorption rate, the longest construction time cycle, but you have pension funds dropping tens of millions of dollars into these locations at negative leverage because they're looking 10 to 30 years down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I read this morning that we absorbed 725,000 units nationally in the first half of 2025. So we got a record amount of supply and a record amount of absorption, and they're just saying that like they thought that everybody was thinking it was going to take a lot more time for that oversupply to burn off.
That just came out the other day, didn't it?
Yeah, it's just a brand new report. Yeah. So I think, it's hard when you look at things from a national level, then a state level and a local level, and you try to figure out kind of where we fit in all of that. And I don't think we're not suffering necessarily from some of the hangovers that you're getting in the Sunbelt markets. We're suffering more in Portland from the black eye we got just from media and politics and everything.
Yeah, the headline risk has hit us more than the actual fundamentals. I mean, I think we released something maybe a couple months ago, that Portland has the lowest supply to absorption ratio in the nation.
Wow.
So it's like we don't just have a housing shortage, we have the most acute one in the entire United States.
So you got to feel pretty good about being the number one developer in Portland right now.
which is why
I'll take the moniker if you guys are giving it to me.
But all that is why Michael Hamilton is the enemy of one of my sellers recently. Because he was one of the guys who was on the paper for helping pass our temporary SDC waiver. So our city, seeing that we have a housing shortage ahead and saying we're going to remove costs from your pipeline to help facilitate capital going into housing in our marketplace. And so you facilitated that. And so the funny story I had was, I've been working on this off-market deal, and we wanted to. He's got a note. He wants to seller finance, land sale contract that converts to a prom note. All this convoluted negotiation. It's in one of your neighborhoods where you got a lot of supply not yet being built, and there's already a lot of inventory in their one-bedroom units. And and then one of his units went vacant, and he has COVID rents. All of his rents are at COVID levels. One unit went vacant. Our property management company took that unit over to manage it, and all this is happening, and we're negotiating this out. I actually paid my attorney. He drew up the land. We didn't do due diligence first. Spend all this time, go do due diligence. I'm like, this is the worst fucking deal ever. Like Michael Hamilton's about ready to drop 400 units. We can't lease this vacant unit for $300 less than what you have the other ones leased for. You're not even letting us drop the rent because you don't want your other tenants to see that rent drop. Man. And it's like, put the brakes, sale fell.
So it's my fault.
It's your fault.
Yeah. Tell us a little more about this SDC waiver and what role you played in that, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take all the flowers, but I was a very small portion of it getting through. Christina Gahn, Chief of Staff for Donnie Oliveira, whose office put forth this proposal. We were on the phone with her talking about something completely separate, and before it was announced, she asked, "Hey, you have a second? I want to ask you about what if we waived SDC fees?" And my eyes lit up. I was like, "Seriously?" She's like, "Yeah, would that change anything?" I was like, "Yes."
Yeah, a little bit.
What do you need from me to provide you to show that it would make a massive difference? She's like, "Well, if you could provide a model, an example of a deal that you have and how it's performing now versus not and how that changes." So we sent her a financial model on a project. They actually used it during their presentation to City Council, which was pretty neat. But that was the extent of it. It was more of just kind of reinforcing yes, this will make a massive difference. And it has. I mean, I would say most of our deals could not get financed without the SDC waiver. I mean, they could get financed, but the yield would be terrible.
How much does the
pull the trigger.
SDC fee cost on different deal sizes for reference?
Average across our portfolio is $20,000 a unit. So on our 68 unit, it's a little over $1.5 million.
Dang.
It's a big deal.
It's substantial. Yeah.
Yeah, that's substantial.
Yeah.
And that's waived for 2 years now or 3 years?
So it's a 3-year waiver.
Yeah.
They did have the 5,000 unit marker in there, but that's more so a goal. It's not a cutoff. And part of our explanation was, listen, when you get to 4,000 units, we're done. Because why would I start deploying capital to buy more land not knowing if I'm going to make it into that 5,000 units? So they just kept it to 3 years. So there's a 3-year window. I want to say it's August of 2028 is when it ends. And listen, I think we'll be in the exact same position. It's going to be really hard to get a developer who's been building without that massive cost, $20,000 a unit, to go back the next day and be like, all right, it's time to throw $20,000 a unit at our cost again and keep this going. And that's just to get the deals to pencil. I think that there's a misconception that developers want this savings so they can make a lot more money. Listen, the banks are the ones financing these projects. It's ultimately the deal has to pencil so the bank can finance. It's not up to us to.
Well, and you want to do it so you can make money at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's 7.5%, 8% to 10% on your cost.
Yep. Yeah.
Just waived.
Yep.
It's like, okay, now the deal works.
Well, and they, I think it was last March, they put together a 10-year property tax abatement for market rate apartments, which is pretty awesome. I mean, typically you'd have to be building apartments that are fully affordable, 60% AMI rents and below to get this tax abatement. Now you can do market rate housing and get the same tax abatement. So not only do you get help on the upfront side from cost, you also get some easing on your OPEX as you operate the asset.
For our listeners, SDC, system development charges, tell us what does that go to? What does the city use that money for?
Well, I almost want to let Mike answer the question because only God knows where the money goes.
Because if they can just waive it, obviously they didn't need the money or they're getting it from somewhere else.
Well, they have this intention when they take it from you. There's this intention that they're going to build out parks. And so the parks, they got to charge you some money. And then you're going to build out roads. Transportation needs to charge you some money. You're going to influence the sewer system and the stormwater system. So environmental services charges you money. And so you get charged in all these various areas because you're going to impact the city. One good example is transportation, where they're the most fraudulent department in Portland, and so you give them more and more money and then they don't build out any roads. And so now we have this LTIC fee where if you don't have road frontage, you have to pay $600 a lineal foot. You don't have to build it out, they're not going to force you to build it out, but you got to give them money so they can decide that they can the plan is to build out roads, but then they spend it somewhere else.
So they're building a big slush fund that they end up dipping their hand into for other things.
Yeah, and this is Portland's biggest problem is their form of management, where you had 5 city councilors and a mayor, and the mayor would divvy up the different developments for responsibility. And you had a city manager that had no control, no real power. The power was at the mayor. And then our mayors typically would hand out departments, take them back. Like at one point, I can't remember if it was before Wilson, but that guy he would take everything back. He'd have full control of all the departments, and he'd give one person housing. He's like, you're bad at housing. I'm going to take that back. You can have police. And so our upper level management inside of all the city bureaus turnover rate's like 40%. And so when you say, where does the money go? Well, management's changed four or five times as this is built up. The economics has changed. The build out of the city's changed. All your planning has changed, and so it just never gets spent the way that it's supposed to.
So there's no reconciliation that this dollar went into the parks bank account and it should go to parks. They move that money around to whatever.
It's the typical government, which is the augmentation report or the whatever that name is, the auditors, the city auditor, where they audit everything. Every city gets these reports and it tells you how bad your employee morale is, and it tells you how bad you appropriate funds and how bad you misspend stuff. But it doesn't really change anything. It changes to a change of people, but until you get the right people, then it doesn't change into a efficiency standpoint.
And it's also morphed into that. I mean, typically system development charges, when they first came out, it was, hey, I'm building out in the boonies that's got no roads, it's got no infrastructure. So I got to pay these system development charges to build out infrastructure.
Bring the systems in.
Yeah, it's like we're building a 200-unit building and we're using the same sewer line that's already there.
Exactly.
We're not creating a new one. And so they've kind of twisted system development charges into if you're building something, there's a larger load and we're going to go spread it out to all these areas that don't actually impact the development. And there are several major metropolitans that don't have system development charges, and yet they've got city budgets and they've got funds to fund stuff. And I think
magical.
That's where Portland needs to start shifting to and realizing. And I hope
it probably will.
That's what I'm thinking.
Especially with the talk of the doom loop and the way that their downtown income. So here's a real good example of so my property management company is in the Lloyd district. So I just found out I've got a fucking fine because I didn't renew my license. So apparently my location is in this ESD, some special district that if you do property management services in this district, you need this license. I've been there for 8 years, never once knew about it, never once paid the tax. All of a sudden, I have a tax and a fine because now 8 years later, they want to enforce this ESD. Right. And so that's a form of, we need to relook at our income. So our parking rates have doubled. Right. So they're figuring out how do you redo your budget?
Yeah.
So now that we have this waiver, thanks to Michael, do you think that this is a double-edged sword? Like it's going to create maybe some oversupply or too much development?
No, I don't. I don't think we're going to get back to we're delivering 1 million units a year nationally again. I don't think that happens. Development takes time. I mean, as you guys know, it takes a long time. And just talking to brokers in our area, understanding that we're one of the more active groups buying development sites over the last couple of years, knowing that, all right, this waiver just came by. Okay, so now you start, and 15 months from now, you might have a permit, and then you start. I mean, it's going to take at least a year for us to start seeing an uptick in activity beyond the players that have been preparing for this moment. So I put us in the bucket as we've been prepared for this moment. But, a lot of national developers, I would say the only one that is building a project similar size to us, its market rate, is Trammell Crow. They're doing a project in Sellwood. Other than that, Securities Properties, Mill Creek, all these groups have gone out to Hillsborough, Tigard, in various markets. They've stayed out of Portland, and now that's turned. Well, start the clock, because now you got to start doing research. Now you got to start finding your sites, and that's difficult. I mean, it can take, it takes us 6, 7, 8 months once we say, hey, we want to start finding a new project. It'll take us that long to find something that actually makes sense before we start the process.
Do you think also they're building in those markets because on the equity side, it's very difficult to fundraise into Portland because of the black eye that it's had?
I think two things. One, it's very difficult to create a project in Portland that's large enough for the institutional equity. I mean, we bought a little over an acre. We're doing 200 units, and we're on the bottom side of that threshold, where if you go out to, just by the reserve and all those buildings that Holland Partners did.
Yeah. So for relatively 200 units, which is too small for those institutional builders, but an acre is one of the largest projects in East Portland.
Yes. Yeah, that's accurate. And then the flip side being, okay, well, if I don't, and again, it's our product type. We do a 4/1, 5/1 construction. We have essentially a prototype for our architecture. We can plop it onto any lot, kind of push and pull where we need to. When you do a 15,000 square foot lot in the core of downtown Portland, you've got zoning to go up 12, 15 stories. Well, then you start talking about much higher cost, much longer construction time, and it's just not an asset we feel comfortable getting into. I mean, we don't want to be on the luxury side. I think we are in the value creation business, and part of that benefit is we can charge $100 less than the Class A building because of our value creation process. So yeah.
I feel like one of the first times me and Dane met you, you said you wanted to build skyscrapers.
I still do, I mean, that's a dream. I think at some point, but a lot of it just comes down to what fundamentally makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it breaks my heart to say, but it's like the Ritz-Carlton's a great example of an ego project that goes wrong, where it's like, yeah, I would have been really excited to say that was my project, but did it really work in Portland? Is that really the market for it? And so that's what we try and stay away from is ego projects.
You're more excited about making money than doing ego projects?
More excited about being able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
So un-American of you.
I thought you were a deal junkie, Michael.
Oh, I like deal.
No, dude, you can't continue being a deal junkie if you have bad fundamentals. Right? Like if you have bad drugs, you're gonna die.
Yeah, then you're just a junkie.
What's your pipeline look like right now of like deals you're working on, deals you're lining up?
Yeah, so we've kind of split it into, I don't want to say two phases, but we've got a pipeline of about 500 units that we know we're breaking ground on in the next 12 months. And then we've got another pipeline of about 500 units that, so the first 500, we own the land sites, they're designed, they're either going through various stages of permitting and are already permitted. Our other pipeline is, they're under contract, long contracts, over a year to close, and kind of just pushing that down the line. And a lot of that has to do with the equity capital. A lot of equity capital that we're talking to is more interested in doing programmatic relationships than one-off deals. And it sounds funny, but having a 1,000-unit pipeline is still relatively small.
Not enough.
In that sense. And so being able to kind of show, hey, we already have this ready to go. It is happening, whether you're on the board or not. And we've got this other separate pipeline that we're going to be working on once we get through this wave of deals.
And you're trying to basically do as many deals as you can and make this as big as possible type of thing?
Yeah. I mean,
he wants to be fundamental.
Yeah,
big as possible is not
while still
fundamental.
making money, sure. Like you have big picture, like you're a go-getter, you're really trying to go.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest bottleneck? Like, is it raising equity, finding enough deals, managing people?
Yeah, I would say that always changes. In this season, it has been the equity side, and I think it's just a natural progression of the cycle that we're in. Again, it's like I said when we were outside, it's like a lot of the equity capital we had talked to maybe 9 months ago, a year ago, we're buying distress. We're buying all these over-leveraged projects, and that just hasn't happened. I mean, there's been transactions, but it's not 2008 because of how much liquidity is in the market. And so we're now seeing these groups that had that investment thesis say, well, wait a minute, why don't we just go back to what we know works from a value creation standpoint, which is development. I mean, I know a lot of guys initially were like, oh, you can buy cheaper than you can build. I don't necessarily agree with that, depending on what type of product you're doing. But if you can buy cheaper than you can build, we're talking about one every 20,000 deals that are out there. It is so hard to do.
We did it one time.
One time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you looked at 20,000 deals to get there.
But could you imagine being a fund and saying, hey, we've raised $100 million of equity that we've got to deploy into these distressed deals? That really forces you.
Yeah.
Right? And it forces you to get into deals that aren't great, because if you don't deploy that capital and it gets recalled, you're probably not going to raise the capital from that investor again. And so they're trying to get creative on how they deploy it.
Yeah. Can you break down what like your team looks like today too, and what your day-to-day role looks like? Because you've tremendously grown and hired a lot of people.
Yeah. So my role hasn't changed too much. It's always kind of been high level as far as vision for the company on a day-to-day. Kind gosh, everything from, just yesterday I had 4 phone calls with equity groups, then I had a bank kickoff call, and it's a lot of deal sourcing. So I always say we're always looking for projects. I think there was a period of time earlier in the year where I was like, all right, we've got enough stuff. And then again, it was like, wait a minute, keep sending us. And so I always do our initial deal screening, our underwriting, and pretty much everything capital related. Then we've got guys on our team that do more of the investor relations stuff. They put together the reports. Some of our larger capital partners like to have that one-on-one FaceTime once a month, talk about a deal. So we've got our project executives on the construction side that handle that aspect. And then we just recently brought on property management. So we've got a separate office in Lake Oswego, property management company, separate from our development firm, but very much integrated with our group.
Did you purchase a property management company or you just started one?
No. So we have an asset manager who was previously in property management for about a decade. And we were thinking like, gosh, we should really just do our own property management. But nothing against property management. It is just an ugly business, in my opinion. And so that was something we were chewing on. And finally, we're like, you know what, let's do it. And we were buying a property from a broker who had his own property management company. I think they started about 5 years ago, had 1,000 units. And we said, hey, how about you show us a couple of your T12s? We're going to show you our T12. Tell us what you would do differently. And everything just aligned with how we'd operate from, a good example. It's a small example, but these things compound when you talk about hundreds of units is like a trip charge. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I've got a dishwasher that's out and I've got a clogged toilet. Okay, well, most property managers will charge for 2 trip charges. Well, it's 1 trip. So those are the types of things that we're finding from a cost standpoint. And so what we did was say, hey, we're going to start our own property management company, or we'll exclusively give you our entire portfolio, but we want you to charge us 3%. We get a 1% rebate. We get total cost controls, and there's no markups on service work that's done.
How do you get the cost controls? Are you managing the payables?
We don't manage the payables. We have access to them. So we've got the same administrative access on Appfolio that the property manager has. So I can see, all right, well, if we had, a good example, we had 1 work order this month and there's 4 trip charges, what's going on? And that's something that we had experienced with these larger property managers. Again, we've got larger assets, and so we're talking about the Avenue 5s of the world, right? The Coast, the Gray Stars. And I get it. They need to make money, but what we found is they don't care about the asset as much as the owner cares about the asset. Mm-hmm. And not just from a fundamental financial standpoint, but tenant experience. How quickly are we responding to issues that tenants have? So that was a big component.
So do you feel like because it's in-house, you can solve for those issues, that you'll manage with a different level of care because it's all vertically integrated?
Certainly. Yeah, certainly. I mean, and I think that's the important thing about our group is we're fully vertically integrated, but not for the sense of having individual business units. It is everyone is aligned for the same goal because everyone actually benefits from hitting that goal. And so, a good example is our construction company. It's like we don't have a construction company so we can make as much money throughout construction and charge change orders. It's like, listen, we're on the loans. We want these things to be on budget and on time. So we use them for, cohesiveness to making sure that we're all working towards the same truth.
Cost controls.
Yep, cost control, schedule control. Just efficiency and communication. Being able to sit in a design studio with our architect and quickly make decisions, understand the impact on cost and schedule, and then change those decisions based on the feedback real time. It gives us a tremendous advantage.
Do you have an in-house architect?
So we don't have an in-house architect. I will say that the architect we have is, I would say, his business. About 80% of what he does is our product.
Yeah.
So from a structure standpoint, no. But from an operating standpoint, we very much treat.
He shows up when he needs to. Yeah. We've been arguing about the property management thing because we're spread across multiple markets. And Gabe,
the argument's disgusting or what?
Discussing.
Disgusting.
Disgusting.
A disgusting
discussion. Conversation.
That's what I thought he said too. I was like, hey, he must not like it.
So Gabe keeps telling us everyone that starts in-house property management quits it at some point.
That's not true.
I would say look at Gray Star. Gray Star started as a property manager. And I love the way that they did this.
The story.
Start as a property manager for all these large institutional assets, get in with these institutional owners, and then build a business from there. Again, it really depends. What are you managing? What's what's your trajectory? But I don't necessarily disagree with them because I don't love property management from operations risk standpoint. But
the other thing is it's just like when somebody says the word real estate, we all think of a different thing. The average person thinks of a house. We're thinking of our apartment complex. The same thing comes with property management, where when you're managing Class A 100+ unit projects with on-site staff, it's a much different experience than when you're managing 20 to 50 unit, no on-site staff, Class B and C inventory in tertiary markets. Like, there's a whole different level of employee that you attract. It's a whole different system that you build. It's just different.
Yes. Yeah. And when you work down I always say you work down the AMI scale, you work up in demand, right? It's like the lower the AMI, the higher the demand, but it also has its trade-offs of what headaches are you dealing with.
It gets dirtier the lower you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I like what you did because it's not necessarily in-house. It was all built. You didn't have to go build it from scratch and spend all the time, but you get the controls of what you want. So like some of our smaller property managers, like in the markets where we're farther out on, like we find good success with them because we'll go be 50% of their portfolio pretty quickly.
Yes.
And then if you ask for something to be done, it gets done.
It gets done. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a black or white answer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it just depends on what level you're at also. I mean, there's a time and a place for
absolutely
having it.
The number one conversation with people that want to go to a high cap market like Midwest or Southeast, it's like, we want to go buy 2 houses in Alabama. I'm like, you're going to suck.
Yeah.
If you don't have the ability to buy 40 houses and be a magnet and get someone's attention, you're just not going to operate.
Just a number.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have scale. But like with you guys spread out on the coast, you don't need to in-house manage that. You can. When I came away from the GoBundance Summit, they talked about second-party management. So instead of third-party management, second-party management. So you use the management company to handle the AP process, but you manage their staff that does the day-to-day of it. That was an interesting concept.
Yeah.
So when you look at a company like Greystar and they're the third largest apartment holder, largest property management company, do you see something like that and you're like, I could do something like that?
Yeah, I think we certainly can and certainly will do something like that. I mean, I think the thing with real estate is patience and timing things correctly and making sound decisions. And, I don't think that we're the type of group that's going to necessarily set volume goals every year because our volume's determined by what's happening in the marketplace. And when you try and force something is when you typically get in trouble. And I look at our last 2.5 years, we're a development company. We got a construction company. We haven't built anything for 2.5 years. Not because we couldn't, because it didn't make sense to. And so just depending on, I love Portland. This is my home. I don't see us moving to other markets necessarily in the short term. But yeah, as we grow and there's going to be assets that we have investors that they want to hold for the long term and we can continue to increase that balance sheet to the point that we can, certainly. But again, it's got to be methodical.
Well, because it's crazy when you start reading about like the Greystar story and it's just like some dude who bought a property management company and then he took the next step and then slowly grew it. And then you just start reading and you're like, it seems so simple when you read it like that.
Yes. Yeah.
But then you're looking, you're like, one of the largest construction or developers, one of the largest property management companies, one of the largest apartment holders. You're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
A moment of silence for Greystar. Is that what you want to do, Trevor?
Well, I thought so because we're kind of doing all of those things. But I like your principle of like, does it help us perform does it help us acquire stack?
Does it help us
stack performing assets? Sorry. And like, because we don't care to necessarily have a property management company unless it helps us own and perform these assets better, because it's a lot of work to go do that, right? I'm assuming you have a property management company.
Yeah, I'm really not excited about starting another one.
Yeah.
Well, like from what I've seen, we started management with the idea of, okay, well, that'll help you acquire units. But what I found is it doesn't help you acquire anything. Mm-mm. It can help you raise capital. It can help you create partnerships, but you don't buy any of your clients. You're against each other. Your job's to manage well. So what? You pay more for it? Like those things you don't build management to acquire, in my opinion.
Yeah, your owners are going to tell you last when they're selling.
Weird, right?
They don't want you to know how their property's selling.
During that period when you didn't build for like 2.5 years, because now you're making your money from acquiring deals and construction fees and all this to fund all your employees. What are you doing to fund all that in the interim?
Yeah, so we don't charge acquisition fees. We don't charge asset management fees. We do charge developer fees.
Okay.
And we charge general contracting fees and property management fees. So typical fees as a part of any transaction we do charge. And I think the beauty of it is, 4% on what is it? About $100 million of development cost can feed a lot
for
of people.
A while.
Yeah. And so that's what we've essentially been able to do is, we don't get paid our full fee right up front, right? It's in phases. You have to hit milestones, but we've been fortunate enough to use our fees to keep the lights on and keep people fed, and yeah. So
how come you don't charge the acquisition fees and things like that?
Two reasons. One is in each of our deals, we probably have anywhere from 20 up to 50% of the equity capital. So a lot of it's kind of like, well, we're just taking our own money and paying it back to ourselves. But we, again, our structure isn't to create margins on fees. It is to build the most cost-effective asset we possibly can. And so, I'd use the construction company as an example. If we didn't charge a fee, we wouldn't have a healthy construction company that could operate efficiently, right? Whereas the acquisition fee, it pads our pockets, but it doesn't feed the asset in any way.
Because you're vertically integrated.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the only way.
And again, value creation is our ethos, and so we don't look at that as value. And then on the property management side, we only charge 3%, and then our firm, Seneca, gets a 1% rebate. We kind of look at that as an asset management fee per se, where it's like, all right, we're charging 1% on the asset, but gross fee-wise, it's standard and sometimes below market.
Yeah, it sounds below market to me based on kind of what I'm seeing across the board.
Typically it's 4%, you get up to 5%.
Yeah. So are you funding these deals like with your guys' money too for a big portion of them, or you're just mostly raising equity?
Yeah, so I would say it's half and half. We've got co-GP on our larger projects, so their investment as a co-GP technically reflects our investment in the project. But then we've got deals where we need $5 million in equity, and we've put up 2.5, and then we go out and source the other 2.5.
Will you re-raise on the back end ever after it's built?
It really depends on where the pipeline's going.
Yeah.
If there's exorbitant amounts of equity capital out there, absolutely. But I think, as you guys can see, the market is still shifting back into development. It is still a slog to raise equity capital. And right now our priority is just capitalizing our projects.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure at some point we'd do something like that.
That's like 1.5 cycles down the road.
Yeah, there's
you gotta get some capital turns first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can you speak to some of your challenges in your business today? Is it primarily in the fundraising side? Has that been the hardest part over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean it's black and white from what it was in 2020 and 2021, which was supply chain issues, labor issues, and capital was abundant
everywhere. Yeah.
Now it's the opposite, where bids are coming in lower. Lots of guys want to work. There's a lot of talent out in the space, but capital's harder to get. And again, I think it's just a natural evolution of the cycle that we're in. Again, a year ago, if I were to ask Mike, hey, where do you think rates are going? You might have an okay idea, but I mean, who knew? And
they're always going down. That's my opinion.
But I guess now there's a trend that we can count on, and
we can actually finally say or feel like we have enough time of stuff coming back down and improving.
Yes,
that there is now feels like a proven cycle shift.
Yes, yeah. But as far as challenges go, I would say I don't look at it as a a challenge necessarily. It's just a natural part of being a developer, which is raising capital during a time where people have been very scared of what's going on in the capital market.
There's a lot of uncertainty.
Yes.
Is it also harder for you to raise capital because you're doing larger and more deals too? So you now just have a larger capital raise that you have to accomplish?
I would say the scale has actually helped the capital raise. We are somewhat moving from high net worth individuals to I don't even necessarily want to call them family offices, but families that have large sums of capital. Our average investor is $2.5 million, and so we don't go out and just shoot and spray and try and raise as much capital as possible. We try and tie a project to the capital partner, to the business plan, right? So it's like if we have a project that we know is performing at a 7.5 cap, untrended, we can develop it today. Typically, that investor is going to want to stay in the deal longer. So then we try and source the capital for an investor that doesn't want out in 36 months. They're willing to be patient.
How are you meeting these people over time?
Oh, man.
Well, because you're a hustler. Like when I met you, I'm assuming you were going to all those meetups just to meet people and like find the next lead for who had money.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you that meetup was probably like one of 4 meetups I've ever gone to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's awesome because I got to meet you guys.
Well, yeah, and I think you met Carter there too,
Yes,
right?
and I met Carter there as well. But yeah, a lot of it's been word of mouth, and it's kind of interesting because we haven't built for the last 2 years, the word of mouth has more so just been on how we execute, how we communicate, and how we identify deals. Not so much, hey, I just made 4x on my money with these guys. You guys should invest too. It's more of, hey, these guys are dialed in. We get this type of reporting. We ask them these questions, and if they don't have the answer, they find the answer. And so that's been a lot of it is word of mouth.
Like when you say word of mouth, that's you showing someone them telling their friend type of thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, a good example, we had an investor put $2 million in a project, and he just saw us building a building back in 2022 and called and asked if he could buy the building. And I said, I didn't intend to sell it, but I'm developing more stuff. And if you had capital to buy a building, to sit down, and sure enough, he decided to invest in a development project. So it's I wish we had a more succinct method to the madness, but a lot of it is organic. And then, we're getting into these larger projects that require institutional capital. And so those conversations have been really eye-opening because everything that we've thought is happening in Portland and that we've thought is happening in development is what these larger equity groups are seeing. And so being able to, I would say, flirt with these equity groups has been an awesome learning experience. But yeah, no. I wish I did webinars like you guys and all the cool advertising.
I don't know if you do.
We don't have the marketing personnel for that.
That's smaller chunks. I think both models work, but I like what you're doing because you can find a very specific project for that person to place the capital into, and it's easier marketing actually to go target fewer people that are very more direct because now well, I guess how do you find? You're just buying lists and stuff of the family offices and cold outreach to them, or?
No, that's a good question. No, a lot of it has been like the good old fashioned
just networking.
Yeah, and using AI. I mean, I know AI is
who has money near me
buzzword. Yeah, but being able to build, we built a GPT that can read all of our models and understand what needs to move, and using similar type structures to just identify groups. For example, wait,
back up. You used AI to look at your models and do what?
So it can essentially, I'm excited about this because I just built it out a couple of weeks ago, but you can essentially dump our financial model into our GPT and say what happens if, you can type it in rather than maneuvering it, and then it can essentially communicate to you what will happen in the model and where things could go wrong.
And that's just Excel models you're plugging in?
Yeah, and it took time because you got to teach it what cells to look at for certain things, but it's really cool when I can throw in a model for, let's say I've got a 70-unit project and then I've got a 100-unit project, and I can say, hey, I've now got a 100-unit project. This is my land basis. Use similar rents to this model, and you can just kind of update it now.
Yeah, give you a high-level look.
Yeah, I mean, is it super helpful?
And you use that, you say, to pair it with your equity partners?
No, just the example I was giving is using AI to identify. So, for example, I had a list of about 30 family offices, and I was able to use the AI to say which of these groups want to do equity in Portland, right? So that shrinks the list quite a bit. In Portland for multifamily at this check size and who's actively deployed capital in the last X amount of time.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can get lists off of PitchBook, Fintrex, whatever, and I could reach out to all these people and they're just be like, no, we're not interested in that asset class. And
Well, that's what you ran into, right?
yeah.
I reached out to a lot of people.
And a lot of it too, and something I would say, I don't know if Salem has a Portland maps, but just seeing who owns other large assets, being like, oh gosh, that's a group, small family office out of Northern California. And
that's a good idea.
And so being able to reach out to them that way.
That's who I reached out to for a couple of our projects that we're selling right now.
And that happened on accident. I was just curious, and I was like, oh, this might be a good fit. So,
Yeah, just talking to more people. Do you know who Rob Beardsley is?
I don't think so.
You might recognize him.
Lone Star Capital.
He's like
New York.
Similar
the
age,
younger
has
kid.
has like 800 million in real
it's
estate.
unbelievable.
And he talked about what was his first raise. How many people did he get?
He raised
50.
$4 million from
50 people.
He was 21 years old,
Jeez.
and he had never done a deal before.
Well,
he lived in an apartment.
And then you guys have me on right after that one.
I mean, you're the
Well, he doesn't. It's actually a really, really good contrast. The timing is good because people are going to hear that one, and he's very much in the institutional markets, and he still raises from lots of groups. It's not just one like family office or a pension fund or any programmatic JV type thing, but he's only doing 150 unit minimum and like up to, I think their biggest project is over 300 units.
Is he raising from a pool of investors for this project?
He's just got a list of a couple hundred people that
they have their own inner circle of high net worth individuals, and then he does a lot of fund to fund. So he actually has funds that will co-GP with him and help raise like half of the capital to do the project.
So he joined Raise Fest, if you've ever heard of that, with Hunter Thompson. We went to the event, and he was the keynote speaker there. And we saw him. And that's the perfect thing to be a keynote speaker at, because all those people are going there with the idea of, I'm going to raise money to make my money.
Yes.
And
they don't know how to do projects.
And he's like the dude in the group. So everyone's like, yeah, let's do your project.
Yeah, he's raising money, but also an operator.
And the LLC, the SEC now created an actual good vehicle for, like, if you're raising capital for someone else's project, you used to have to be a GP and really show that you are an actual productive producing GP, which no one did.
Yep.
Now they have a way where you can just a fund invest as an LP. You don't have to be a GP, so it makes that structure stack easier.
Yeah, I believe prior you could do it, but it was harder. Well, you couldn't do it if you weren't a securities advisor, right? Exactly. You had to have securities license to be able to just raise capital from people and then put it into different funds.
Yeah.
Is that what? And so now you can do it without being
to go around it.
Yeah.
But you're not actually showing actual activities of a GP.
Outside of fundraising, yeah.
So I want your advice on how we're raising, because we're only like 12 months into ever starting to raise money. So we're just learning all the lessons and trying all the things. So we're doing obviously reach out to your network, try to get referrals and dial that, keep track of everyone, make sure you follow up with them.
Yep.
And we're trying the webinar thing. So why we're doing that is because we ran the company where we're helping people build their real estate portfolios.
Yes.
And we're really successful with the webinars and online ads and stuff. So okay, let's see if this works. So Dane's doing the webinars to just teach people, this is what we do. Here's all the ways you can invest passively in real estate. If you like what we do, let's have a conversation. So we're doing I had Avery, our marketing team, do 100 DM outreach a day, leading up to the webinar. I don't know if she did all those, so hopefully you did, Avery. But she was texting me yesterday. She's like, I have a 20% sign up rate right now on it. And then I was like, this is the type of avatar. DM him as Gabe on LinkedIn because Gabe looks really cool.
The haircut.
I was going to make the joke. I was really about to say it. Good job. You beat me to it.
So then we're doing the cold outreach. So we're trying to build all these different funnels, but it's all for that smaller investor. And the idea is to try to get both of those running at the same time, so you have options, but you have limited bandwidth and resources too, is the problem you run into.
Yes.
So do you think that's a good approach to go about it?
I do. I mean, I think it's, approach and audience, two different things. I would say there's a group up in Seattle, Washington. They're called Pinnacle Partners. I think they're the largest opportunity zone fund in the United States. And they do webinars, right? It's they do webinars the same way you guys do webinars. They got someone pops up and they're talking about the deal and they kind of run through it. It's all just who's the audience on the other side.
Yeah, I'm trying to shift our webinar too from like, hey, this is our deal, invest with us, to more of a value perspective. Because when I was doing the things, I was like, this is how you can buy multifamily or do this type of deal or whatnot. So now it's like, how can you invest passively in real estate? Here's all the ways you can do it. And by the way, we do this type. So like if you're interested in this, like try to get the lead.
Well, and you're so active, you've got a big enough track record. You could eventually do a blind fund. Like, and that's where those small investors are great for, like a blind fund.
Yeah, I've heard that's really hard.
It is.
Because people want to know the specific asset.
Yeah.
But like with the fund, it's like it is a specific asset type that you're doing with metrics.
That's exactly why I said you have enough acquisitions and enough track record that you can paint that picture. Whereas these are the ones that we actively have going. These are the ones we just rolled out of. These are the ones we're underwriting. And so then they can see, oh, we're going to be in a project like this. Yeah, it's definitely a different pitch. But for some people, that actually takes some of the decision fatigue, right? Like, oh, the details of this, what could go wrong here, what can go wrong here. They're just saying, oh, well, I'm comfortable with you.
Yeah. You're just underwriting an operator.
Yeah.
The issue, I mean, our honestly issue right now, probably more than anything with fundraising, is we're targeting the same return on every deal because we want to be able to hit a 20% AAR for all of our investors. And so that's what we present to people.
Your home runs fuck it up.
But every deal is so different. Like we're not just saying, hey, we're always building, 4/1, 5/1 in this area of Portland. It's just new construction. We have the same layout for every building. It's like every deal that we do is a totally different thing, and so it also has its own risk factors.
Yeah.
And so like trying to raise money for like different deals that are different every time, and I like remembering all of the risk factors for each deal that we have. Like stuff on the coast has totally different risk factors than stuff in Monmouth, Oregon, right? That we just raised for. That like, okay, this is a college town. Like I'm more worried about the student housing piece. Like what's the I mean, how much is the college grown over the last 5 years? Like you're answering to all those questions, and then you go over to the coast, and somebody's like, "When's the last time there was a tsunami?" And it's like, I don't know. I don't know when there's going to be another one either. Like we have insurance,
we just had it. We
right?
just had it. You're good for 100 years.
We're good for 100 years according to the Fed. No, so like that would be the upside in my mind of a fund.
Well, and you guys are doing different levels of risk, like with the development side, the in-place cash flow, the long value add, the quick value add, the seller financing, and that's where a blind pool makes more sense because you're giving a blended return to the blind fund, and then you're taking the upside on the riskier ones. You're giving more of the pie on the less riskier ones, and then you get to essentially create through an acquisition pipeline your risk-adjusted basis for what you want to create while giving them their risk-adjusted basis, and you're taking a vig on top.
Yeah. No, and it could win for us. I think the struggle with that would be finding investors who were okay doing like 3 very, very different project types where you're looking at development, heavy value add, and then just stabilized kind of opportunistic deals.
Well, I think then you got 3 different funds.
That's what I was going to say, because then it's not one. Then it's not one fund, and so you do have
different rates of return for different.
That's what it would end up being. And ideally, you have people who want to just put $50K in each, right?
You just need more deal junkies who just want to write a fucking check. Just be a deal junkie in your deal.
Yeah, if you're one of those people, give me a call.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy today. He's like, he sounded like a deal junkie. He didn't care about the deal. It was just like, as long as you don't trigger my risk box and scare me, I just want to throw it in and do a deal.
Yeah,
he's investing in you.
Yeah, that's been interesting because I'm not raising money like Dane is, but I try to talk to people when I see the opportunity, and no one has asked about the returns on the project.
Yeah. No, I got a good stat for you. I was talking to the founder of LPGP Match. I don't know if you guys so I talked to him last week, and he was saying 80% of their investors that are investing $1 million or more, they can set certain parameters, certain return parameters. They do not want a deal over 25% IRR.
They feel like it's too high risk.
So funny.
Yep. Yeah. That's how it's perceived.
And is that like IRR to them on their capital or project level?
Yes, they're IRR.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was my biggest takeaway in 2019 when I went to the real estate guys syndication conference. Was that exact thing? Was one of the presenters was, the deeper the pockets, the higher the return, the more they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Because they have, they're flip-flopped. They think in a completely different way. Preservation, it's risk averse. If you can claim this, they don't even want to communicate with you because you're not talking the way that they want to talk.
Well, and objectively, they're correct.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Like, even if on a one-off deal basis, like, oh no, this is actually just we can offer over a 25% return and risk adjusted. Like, it makes a ton of sense. There's huge alpha here. It's like, sure, you can do that with one deal, but the guys who are writing checks to operators and like at a programmatic level, which is what you were talking about earlier, it's like those guys know that those deals aren't out there all over the place.
Yeah.
You might find one, but if I'm going to be the guy who wants to write 10 checks or, over 10 years to one operator, like, you want the guy who's just doing stable deals that are going to have a pretty set return, and you trust the operator.
Yes.
But you don't want, you know that if an operator is doing a 30% IRR on one deal, then the next deal is going to be something else, and then one of them is going to fail.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to have to think about the one that's going to fail.
They're not
they don't know which one. They don't know which one it's going to be.
They're investors,
right?
not gamblers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, let's wrap this one up.
Blowing up.
For the listeners who want to hear Michael's story too, we have a podcast going back. You can search Michael Hamilton, and he has a crazy story of how he started out. Like one of the most insane things I've ever heard. It was awesome. So you guys can check that out. But Dane, turn your phone off, Dane.
It's not me.
His girlfriend wants to know where he is.
Mike's on Tinder
He's
getting
getting
notifications.
Cash App offer.
God. Now my wife's going to be like, let me see your fucking
My Cash App AI agents rolling through.
Oh, man.
All right, guys. Michael Hamilton, you're CEO and founder of Seneca Development. We claim you to be the number one developer.
I keep telling everyone that.
I love it. I'll take it.
You're our hero, and we really appreciate you being on the podcast today and telling us more of your story. We're going to come back and do another one.
Yeah, and if people want to get a hold of you, what are you looking for?
Friendship. No, I'm just kidding.
We're not good enough for you.
I mean, we're always looking for good projects. I mean, I would say we've got a pretty significant standard on the types of projects we do, and so if you've got something that you think makes sense, send it our way. If you're looking for capital.
I think it's this recorder thing beeping at us.
Dude, I think it's you, dude.
There we go.
No, it's this thing. I bet your scan card's getting higher.
That's my shot clock to stop
So,
talking.
looking for some deals. How can people send them to you?
Info@senecadevco.com.
Sweet.
All right. There you have it. Michael Hamilton, Deal Junkies. We love you. Thanks for listening. Please share us, and we'll see you next time.